Hi folks, welcome to today's color process video. Right, today's comic is a fairly fun one in terms of the layout. Like it's one of the most it's one of the more interesting kind of layouts I've done for a comic in a while. Not that it's entirely original. I mean, I based, as I said in the typed up process post, I based this layout on a diagram for the logic of the time travel mechanics in the film Primer, which if you haven't seen and are into like time travel and stuff like that, watch it. It's really good. So when it comes to the colors for today's comic, I wanted to keep things fairly sparse because I was worried that if I went for a more detailed color style, um, it would lead to the comic becoming basically an unreadable mess. As is, it is kind of tricky to read unless you're zoomed right in because of how tiny those panels are. Um, and but not just the text, but like seeing the character and separating the character from the box and whatnot. So I wanted to make sure that the way I colored things, that there was very much, it was very clear what was going on. Um, like I wasn't going to shade the character at first, but I made I made that one concession that I decided it would just look nice to give an extra bit of depth to the character, just to add a bit of lighting and to make things look a bit more dramatic in certain scenes. Like, for example, the very top panel with the backlighting and the panel where the timelines split. Where again I've added some backlighting to that. Excuse me. Oh, there's me belching on camera. That's sorry about that. anyways, anyways. So what I decided to do with in terms of the my color choices was I decided to just stick with red, green, and blue, um, just to keep things simple and readable. Red, obviously, for the like the kind of timeline indicators, like the color of the panel borders. Blue for um, basically blue for like the normal scenes where nothing happens in that timeline, and then green for the timeline where the character gets stuck in a loop. Um, I was originally intending on adding a bit of a gradient to the timeline indicators, as in like the those like arrows leading from panel to panel. Um, I was going to have, say, like the normal timeline would be blue, and then the new timeline would be kind of like an orange. But I felt it 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 just didn't really sit well with me. It didn't really. I don't know. There was just something about it. It didn't look right, and also I felt the need to leave things open to interpretation. I didn't want to literally tell the reader which way they should read the comic, like what way they should interpret the timelines, because I mean if you look at this comic, you can read it as having only two timelines, as in the character going in the box, um, and then nothing happening, and then the other timeline where the character gets trapped in a loop. However, it does turn out there's a third timeline where the character goes forward in time, loops back, and then goes back onto the, say, like the normal timeline. So that creates like a third timeline of sorts. At least I think it could be read that way. Um, and I I felt that, you know, I didn't want to handhold the reader too much with this. I felt things were clear enough as they were without having to use colors to uh, not to give away everything, because I mean it's all right there. But you know what I mean. It's just I'm very much the type that I, I I want readers to kind of make up their own mind about my comics at times, especially something like this. So I decided to just leave the panels a single color and let you know, just leave it like that. Um, then, I mean, really, it was just a case of just fine tuning things here and there. One trouble I had with this comic was because the artwork is so minuscule, um, and the line work as a result is very thin. When I did my thing, like my, you know, when I'm coloring my work, what I do is I'll select an area between like bits of line work. So say the character's face, I'd use like the magic wand tool to select the interior of the character's face. And then what I would do is I have an action, basically a shortcut set up in Photoshop that expands that selection. And it'll expand it depending on my needs. It'll expand it by 1 pixel or 2 pixels. Um, and I tend to go for the 1 pixel when I want to expand a selection between like very thin lines. However, in this case, even expanding by just 1 pixel caused the selection to go like outside of the line work. So in this case, I just selected the art and didn't do any expansion. However, one thing I did notice as I went along, especially when I added shading to the character, was the artwork didn't match up with the line work quite like I wanted it to. Now, this is only really the kind of thing you would notice if you zoom right in on the art, you know, see it at its original resolution. You know, it's something that won't really be seen or won't really be noticeable like at the size you would be viewing it. And I suppose that's a trap that's very easy to fall into when you're working on digital art, of like zooming so far in that you see every single little error and mistake and bit of dirt and whatnot. And you can get so caught up in trying to sort out those problems that it can become kind of crippling, and it can like eat up a lot of time. So in this case, I decided, do you know what? This is something that no one's going to notice, so I will just leave it as it is. And as a result, I mean, you can see for yourself. It looks fine. I hope it looks fine, um, and I hope it's readable. I'm I'm especially worried about how this one is going to look on phone screens, especially on the likes of Instagram, where you don't have the ability to zoom in on an image on it. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. So I will leave it at that. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you at the next video. Take care.